Well, good morning to all of you. Thank you. You may have heard whispers. That's when we're not on air, as we call it, off air. We tend to have some interaction. And Dr. Kabiru Mahama is right here. Good morning to you, Dr.
Good
Kabiru
morning,
Mahama.
Oga.
Yeah. He is a chartered economist, a development economist as well. Somebody also well-versed in development planning is also right here. Ibrahim Mutala Mohammed. He is also the Member of Parliament for Tamale Central. Good morning to you. How are you?
Good morning.
Nice, nice. I want to say good morning to Chief Mante of Akosombo. You celebrated the birthday of your son, Cyrus Charles, alongside your wife, Auntie Vivian. So I'm looking for the opportunity to come for the weekend, as promised, with some of my friends and their family as well. Good morning to you. Riches Kokoti of Aluex Tema, good morning to you. Chairman KD, Kojo Daniels, good morning to you. Chairman Godwin Tamaklo of the Rate Group, Rate Transport, good morning to you alongside your wife Alice. And let me say good morning to some of my great friends who are around. Money Ni Money. Hopefully you've joined our stream. We'll have some great interactions so far. And then also Ras Kotoka Imelda Nassar, Money Ni Money. And then also Alfred Dodu. Thank you all of you for being faithful. All of us were watching the streams yesterday, so we know the issues. Today we want to talk about a concern that had been raised by a number of economists as well as observers of the economy about how the Bank of Ghana, its board or directors, as well as the managers had managed the bank over the last couple of years, now culminating in a heavy loss as far as their expenditure as well as reports are concerned, as published for 2022, 60 billion in excess. But more worrying is its own administrative and service cost, for which, according to some of the leading economists like Joe Jackson, also Professor or Dr. John Kwachi of the IEA, Professor Bobkin, Professor Lord Mensah had said could have been put in check relatively, because the country had said that it was on austere path. So it means that you have to reduce costs. The Bank of Ghana, though, made a sharp rebuttal reply, said it's also relatively because we had increase in transportation. Petrol prices were not too good. The forex differentials were also manifesting at the time. Now, the NDC, the leading opposition party, has joined the fray, and this time led by its minority leader as well as leaders within the minority rank and file, are now giving an ultimatum to the governor of the Bank of Ghana, Dr. Ernest Edison, to resign his position within a period of 21 days. Now, why are they doing that? But we also will go into the archives indicating that apparently the signs had been on the wall, the warnings had been given, there were some sharp rebuttals from the Bank of Ghana as well. Let me say good morning to Emmanuel Kuku Ntoso. Evans Blay, you've joined us. We're grateful. Abdul Latif Bakari, Mabena Redemption, and then also Prince Selassie, you've joined us. John Essel, we're grateful. And then Martin Kafui, and many of you who are joining us subsequently, we're grateful. Please also make sure that you have the cash out short code well memorized. And we're talking about *439#, *439#, *439#. At the end of the segment, we're going to have a draw. You have at least 2 winners. And now let's take an insert from the NDC when they held that press conference to get to have a gist of what they were saying.
In his address, had said that as for him, he's done everything right, and we should blame it on Ken Ofori-Atta and Dr. Bawumia for asking him to write government debt of about 48 billion off. So it tells you that even without the write-off, the actions of the governor and his inactions has actually collapsed the central bank ahead of the domestic debt exchange.
And Dr. Mama, the signs don't look good. I know that you've well sharpened your teeth. You want to come and defend this, but it doesn't look good.
All right, so good morning to you again, my brother Walker, and to my senior brother, the incoming PhD. Mohammed Mutala.
He's in his final leg of his PhD
yeah,
defense.
so,
Okay.
And also good morning to the people of Tamanov. I think I'll be in Tamanov tomorrow to support a brother who will be filing his nomination form
for the
Alidu
NDC.
Abdul Rahman for the MPP.
MPP, okay.
Yeah, I think we will want to unseat the Honorable Suhini with Alidu Abdul Rahman.
Abdul Rahman. Alidu Abdul Rahman wants to unseat Al Hassan Suhuyini.
They can daydream, you know.
So I think it is going to be held tomorrow, 9 a.m. in Tamil. So I'll be joining them. Walk up. You see, when we have a problem, and the problem has been highlighted, one is to proffer explanation. If the explanation suffices, the general public would come along with you.
Please let me be right in there. Since you're a PhD holder, you said first is explanation. Second is what?
If the explanation suffices, then they will come along with you. If the explanation is not adequate, if the explanation you provide is not convincing, then the action the public would have expected you to take in order either to ameliorate the situation or to even get back and another person will come and manage it is the other option. Now, the NDC minority in Parliament probably is not even willing to listen to the explanation. And their only suggestion is that the governor of the Bank of Ghana should resign with the 21 days ultimatum given. You see, I find that to be premature because this is not the first time the central bank has recorded losses in its books. Okay, when in 2016 the bank recorded losses, no one called for the head of the governor then. No one asked the governor then, even though he might have existed, to be surcharged against the losses. When you are running an economy, you are expected that, just like a company, every year you may not post profits. So when in 2022 the central bank recorded losses, one would genuinely ask, what accounted for these losses? And you were right in your introductory part, highlighting some of the reasons why the central bank recorded losses. Now, the whole issue of central bank and being the lender of last resort, being the banker's bank, and being the anchor of the economy, the monetary anchor of the economy, and also coming in to support government in terms of crisis is not in doubt. That is the primary role of central banks, not just the Ghanaian central bank, the Federal Reserves, Fed of the United States, in the Central Bank of England. All of these come in to intervene whenever government having shortfalls in revenue, government is facing liquidity challenge, government is finding it difficult to meet its obligation when they fall due. This is the primary role of central bank. And even when they record profit, it's supposed to be transferred to the central government for the purpose of running the economy. Now, a central government in the course of the year has encountered enormous challenges, physical challenge, liquidity issues, at a point that we had to call for those we hold their instrument to make some forfeiture. Forfeiture to the extent that they must forfeit some part of their interest, and in some cases, principal. The first victim will be your central bank. It doesn't make moral sense. It doesn't make economic sense. It doesn't make what they call equity sense for you to go after other investors. When your own has investment, you are holding instrument belonging to the central bank. And
the difficulty is that even if you look at the Bank of Ghana Act itself, it's not supposed to have given more than a certain percentage beyond the previous year's declared revenue. So the breach of the regulations themselves is untenable. It's another situation. As a development economy, you should know this.
Yeah, so look, there are different views about central bank financing of central government. They are different, they are varied, and economists are not consensus at IDIM on that. Okay, there's no consensus of mind on how much central banks should. But for Ghana, we have a regulative regime, a legal framework which says that central bank should not lend about 5%, more than 5% of the.
Is there no good reason behind this law?
There are good reasons, and those
so
are
if it's flouted, then somebody's head should roll. If the call is made.
Construction of the law, in the framing of those laws, there are always provisions made for force majeures. Okay.
You are saying that if a government is performing badly, there should be coup d'etat to rethrone
I
the
am
constitution.
saying that in the construction,
so that the head of state
in
goes.
the framing and in the drafting of the law, there are provisions made for force majeures. Okay. And that there are situations that you will contemplate. I don't know, the law is not mechanical. The law is supposed to be flexible and dynamic and address contemporary needs and
That's what
also
they call
adapt.
And letter of the law.
Exactly, and adapt to the circumstances you find yourself. So if central bank, for instance, at the end of a month, you have revenue far lesser than your expenditure, workers have to be paid. Where do you expect the central bank to go, the central government to go to? The first point of resort is the central bank.
If that is the case, why did we even put the law in there in the first place?
The law is supposed to regulate. And when it is regulating your activity, it gets to a point that you will have to also make room. For instance, let me just give a simple analogy. For instance, I have a law to regulate how my household expenses are made. But it happens that I did not budget for a child getting sick of malaria. Is that to suggest that because I did not budget for the child being sick of malaria and my expenditure is capped at, say, 50,000 a month, I should not increase it to 55,000 to cater for the child who is sick of malaria? It doesn't make sense. Okay.
When you cannot take care of it?
I said it doesn't make sense. Even if the man's borrowing.
It doesn't make sense, but when you cannot take care of it, in a curious situation, you still allow it to go?
Then, you then have to go and borrow in order to do that. Because you cannot jeopardize, you cannot jettison, you cannot compromise the health of your child because you think you don't have money. If it demands borrowing to do that, that is the first responsibility of a parent to a child. Okay? So that is the situation the central bank found itself. If 50% of the principal of the working capital of their equity is being shaved off, okay, you then expect nothing but a loss being posted by the central bank.
Let's just give ourselves a reminder. You remember Isaac Adongo, the one who speaks on the state of the economy from 2019, 2020, 2021 up to 2022, had been given the signs and warnings, which apparently he said were on the wall. Of course, after we play this instead of him, we'll also come back and then also get a swift rebuttal back in November from the central bank about this excessive on-lending or borrowing to the government of Ghana, being the central government. Let's take a recall.
And no matter how you shout, your minister only 2 days ago borrowed at 29.8%, and you are saying that people are taking interest at 23%, when your minister is borrowing at 29.8%, only yesterday. And when he was looking for 4.9 billion, he got only 1.1. The minister, as he's sitting here, he's confused as to how he get the money to pay them their money. And he's talking 1.1. So you are not even aware of what is happening in your economy. Mr. Speaker, I heard somebody say that the Bank of Ghana is giving overdraft and that the Bank of Ghana is not printing money. Why? Is the Bank of Ghana a deposit-taking institution? Is the Bank of Ghana raising money through deposit? The Bank of Ghana is obviously printing money and throwing a government. But what is worse is that, Mr. Speaker, the Bank of Ghana Act makes it illegal for it to give money to government beyond 5% of the previous year's revenue.
Petroleum product 2 years ago could deliver a liter of petrol at 4 cedis 50 pesos. So essentially now the problem is not even about the taxes, it's about the exchange rate. And who is supposed to manage the exchange rate? It is the governor of the central bank, Dr. Addison. Another big problem we have now is inflation. And the Bank of Ghana manages the inflation targeting framework, whilst the Ghana Statistical Service reports actual inflation that has occurred.
That was supposed to meet in other ways. In other words, Ghana entered a classroom to write an exam. We were supposed to write the exams in 3 years. In 3 years' time, we said we were not ready. We were given another 1 year to come and write the exam. We still said we were not ready. Then we wrote to the IMF to say that we want you to give us a waiver for non-observance of performance criteria. And IMF says, go and say no more. Today, we are dealing with 22 billion Ghana cedis, an expansion of 53% in the public sector. Mr. Speaker, on the average, we are adding 21% to our public wage bill every year. Mr. Speaker, if this continues, by the year 2020, we will have doubled our wage bill that we left in 2016. Mr. Speaker, that is the height of indiscipline. That is the height of indiscipline. And yet, the finance minister says he is right-sizing government. How type of right-sizing is that you right-size to increase your wage bill by 63%? Mr. Speaker, that is a worrying sign for our country.
Now, you can see clearly, those seated alongside Isaac Adongo, you have the current General Secretary, Fifi Quid. So that was back in 2019. 2019, COVID had not hit. Russia had not gone to bomb Ukraine. Now, that speaks volumes about the warning signs that were on the wall prior to COVID. Also speaks volumes to whether the right decision was made to exit the IMF and whether the warning signs that, for example, Professor Lord Mensa, who is a regular on the show, had given that same year, 2019, that we could end up back at the IMF should be listened to. Now, let's take you through the act, and then I'll ask a question of Dr. Mahama. Now, in Section 30, as amended, of the BOG Act, the total loans, advances, purchases of treasury bills, etc., shall not at the time exceed 5% of the total revenue of the previous fiscal year. Now let's go to the next. What we have, based on its own report for 2022, viewers, is indicating we have these impairments of GOG security holdings from 2021. And then subsequent impairment of loans and advances granted at Quasar government, and also mounting to the amounts you see on TV. In excess, we're having 6 billion in excess. The first one, 48 billion. If you remember, in June, or from March, April, May, June, Isaac Adongo, same person, had been warning that these advances, and he called them printing of money, he called the printing of money to the central bank, was problematic, could reach levels which could impair the BOG, that is, take it to the ICU. Is that not what we've seen in, if you take a look at in 2023 now? The Bank of Ghana then decided to reply sharply, and I remember I read this on the show in November, that period. That was just last year. And it says the claims on government represent the stock of debts by the Bank of Ghana and reflect accumulated claims for, tacit explanations as to why we had all these on-lendings and what they call the printing of money, jeopardizing the state of the bank. Dr. Mahama, your government just doesn't listen, does it?
You see, the fact is that the determination of whether the government listens or does not listen is not going to be measured because government has more or less set aside some fiscal responsibility or financial disciplinary interventions or measures. Okay, that's not the measure of government listening or not. I think that the real measure of a listening government is the measure the government takes in the midst of crisis to save the people.
That's your estimation?
That's my estimation. And if you listen to the German Chancellor, okay, he mentioned on the back of the global program that I hope you people will not be listening to me, you will not be asking me what happened to debt to GDP, what happened to fiscal discipline at the end of this particular program. And essentially the situation we found ourselves. When we were in this crisis, no one was asking what would happen to your debt to GDP, no one was asking what would happen to your fiscal discipline. No one was asking what will happen to your physical constraints or impediments or you've put into governing your account. No one was asking. All what mattered was how do we save ourselves from the situation. Now we are almost out of the wood in terms of that pandemic. People will then begin to ask questions. So for me, the real measure of whether a government listens or not is not in the strict adherence to the laws, even when that particular compliance with the law is going to affect you in terms of the management, in terms of the health, in terms of the safety and protecting the vulnerable in society. So that is not the measure. I think that we must put everything in context and then ask the very tough decision, the very tough questions. Did government have the money to carry on with its mandate? The question is no. Why was government not able to have the money? That's the next question. And it's obviously the issue about the pandemic. I asked myself, if in 2019, this country grew by 6.5% in terms of GDP, the following year, our growth was only 0.5%. Now, what is the percentage reduction in growth? That is a 6 percentage point reduction in growth. Take the 6 percentage point by the size of the economy in 2017, which was around 67 billion. You are getting some amount of 4 billion reduction in growth. Okay? Government didn't borrow to that thing. It means that if we're even able to keep our pre-COVID growth level of 6%, obviously, we will not be in this particular discussion of talking government wasn't able to, cater for his obligation. But government was not able to sustain the 2019 growth of 6.5%.
Because you were warned that the way you are going into the market borrowing at concessional rate, you'll be in trouble.
Borrowing
and then flats came.
Borrowing doesn't inhibit growth. Borrowing actually supports and spur growth.
Nobody has said that.
Okay. So if borrowing does not borrow, so they say that our growth reduced because we are borrowing is to misunderstand the issues. Okay. So when we bring the issue about borrowing, you borrow in order to support economic growth, right? So when you are borrowing and all of a sudden a catastrophe has happened and your growth has dipped, okay, you don't expect any government to sit aloof and not do anything about that. So what I just want to put on record is that, look, the central bank decision to give overdraft to the central government on the back of shortfalls in government revenue is part and in line with the normal mandate of the central bank to central government. And that argument that a section of the Financial Management Act or a section of the Central Bank, Section 30, as amended. But when we also go to read Section 46 of the same Act, it talks about emergency support, okay? Emergency support to the central government. So we must read the whole of the Act as in totality in order to appreciate the issue. For me, central government could have gone to BOJ, and even they reported. The law is that they should report to them through the finance minister. When Adongo and other members of parliament, my senior brother is here, the central minister went to parliament and explained. That may not suffice, but the explanation was provided. At the end of the day, losses are posted by the central bank. There are explanations, but I just want to note that the central bank will be coming with a full response to the issues raised by the minority in parliament.
And afterthoughts, and clearly, because this is based on their own reports. You just hold your horses there. But at the end of the day, we've come to some dire straits. The central bank is in a very wobbly situation because the warning signs were just not heeded to.
Good morning, Roland, and good morning to my brother. Unfortunately, he's on the path of defeating my sister for the Wale Wale MPP primaries. I've been telling him not to contest, to allow my sister to contest, and he's bent on getting the woman out. We don't care as NDC, whoever comes. We are very convinced that
for the Wale Wale seat.
Inshallah, we are very convinced that we are winning the Wale Wale seat this time around. But see, what Dr. Kabiru failed to add when he said, in response to your statement, that overborrowing doesn't affect growth. He failed to add that corruption affects growth. Plundering the resources of a state recklessly, as his boss, the vice president and the president are doing, indeed affects growth. Stealing, outright robbery of people who are virtually criminals, masquerading as politicians, and unfortunately have had the opportunity to manage the resources of a country, that affects growth.
How do you mean?
Dr. Kabiru, and I would explain that in a jiffy. Dr. Kabiru also said that this is not the first time the central bank has reported losses. Nobody says this is the first time. The issue is not just about the reporting of losses. The issues have to do with the outrageous spending, even in the eyes of the so-called losses that have been reported. And by the way, he said the central bank will respond comprehensively to the NDC. NDC hasn't said anything that is not captured in the annual report and the financial statement of the central bank. Every single thing, if you listen to the press briefing delivered by the minority leader, every single statement he made has a leg on what is being reported in the annual report and the financial statement of the central bank. So they are now trying, you see, the NPP is behaving like a child who is at his concrete operational stage of growth. That child blames everybody for his woes except himself. And that is why children at those ages, he can see you wearing a dress which is similar to that of the mother or the father, and then he'll be insisting that you should give the parent's dress to him or her. You have reported, and we are looking at what you have reported and using it as a basis to call for this man to resign or fired. And I know they will come desperately trying to defend. Dr. Kabiru, the issue is not just about the losses. We have gone to the IMF to borrow $3 billion. That is what we are begging the IMF to do. And for which reason this government is compromising on everything, including LGBTQ nonsense. We have gone to the IMF to borrow $3 billion. The Central Bank of Ghana reported a loss of over 60 billion Ghana cedis. That amounts to $6 billion. So it means that the monies we are looking for which reason we are compromising on all stands, getting ourselves involved in conflicts that have nothing to do with us as a state, because we want to please the Bretton Woods institutions and the countries who manage the Bretton Woods institutions. We have spent recklessly, monies that we would have gotten without even going to the IMF. Assuming we manage to prevent half of the $60 billion that has been reported by the central bank as a loss. 60 billion cedis that has been reported by the central bank as a loss. If we're able to prevent that loss just by half, we wouldn't have had any need to go to the IMF looking for money to borrow, because that 60 billion constitute about $6 billion, and the IMF is giving us $3 billion. I don't know whether they would even give us the money, taking into consideration the outright.
Well, they're giving it to us in tranches.
I'm saying that the tranches, I wonder whether it will come, because outright thievery, supervised by the Flagstaff House. You remember I told you on this program, to the displeasure of some of our colleagues in MPP, that the Flagstaff House has become the citadel for corruption. In all the justifications he has given, why we are where we are, he deliberately refused to mention corruption. When CDD, the Afrobarometer, Corruption Perception Index, everybody has identified this government to be the most corrupt in our history. If we had prevented that, I don't think we would have been where we are. And it is important for your viewing public to understand. Aside breaching the law, the Act 30 of the Central Bank law, every financial transaction by any institution in this country, Section 37 of the Banking Act, as amended. Every conduct of any institution in this country, as long as the monies you are managing belongs to the state, you must respect the Public Financial Management Act. Now, he said that and if I just want to quote him very well, he said that the central bank lending, that there are different views on the issue of the central bank lending.
And its support. To a country, for example.
But there are no different laws as to what you should do, even when you are in that circumstance. Now, he said that under the prevailing circumstance, the central bank needed to do so. And he said that we should read the entire act. We should not stop at Section 30. We should go and read at Section 45. Yes, we should read at Section 45. But 48, we should read Section 48. But
even the same 36.
I'm saying that even the same Section 40, the same Section 48 and the 36 says that before you do that, go to Parliament. Go to Parliament. Why didn't the minister Why didn't the Bank of Ghana, through the Minister of Finance, do what the law that you are quoting with alacrity and telling us that we should read that? Why didn't you do that? It is also significant that if you look at the entirety of the thievery which has occasioned some of this, the central bank has become virtually insolvent, bankrupt, 55.1 billion Ghana cedis as negative equity. Now, you also look at the amount of money that they spent. How would you write off debt of government as a result of your reckless borrowing? The reason why this government could no longer get money in the capital market is because they have overborrowed. And the only way they can do that is to rely on the central bank to print money.
Or the domestic market.
The domestic market. And 48 billion was what they wrote off. So tomorrow, like the ranking member said yesterday, NCC or the free zones or the Minister of Trade or the Minister of the Ghana Exim Bank or any other state institution, Ghana Water Company, ECG, they have decided to write off the debt that the state owes them. They do that with alacrity. 48.4 billion constitute almost half of government indebtedness to the central bank. Now, they also have about 131 million, which they spent on motor vehicular services. 131.6 million. Why do they have helicopters and planes that they use as the central bank? That maintenance of this one should constitute that whooping amount of money. 131
the Bank of Ghana says it includes purchase of fuel,
please. I mean, spare me that preposterous claim in an attempt to defend the outright thievery and robbery that the people of this country have been subjected to. They have 97.4 million on foreign and domestic travels. I mean, how ridiculous. 97.4 million in a year on foreign and domestic travels. Where is the bank, the central bank, even the governor himself, where does he go? What kind of domestic travels? 97, do you know what the 97.4 million can do? You need about 800,000 Ghana cedis to build a 6-classroom block. Those who are watching, let your producer divide the 97.4 by 800,000, and we see the number of 6-classroom blocks we built for this country. Students are still lying on their bellies. In Tamale Central, in the heart of Tamale, he knows. Kulkul School, he knows that school. I went to the school to make some donations. A teacher approached me and asked me just to go around the classes. I went to one of the classes. Children were lying on their bellies. And then you spend this amount of money on so-called foreign and domestic travels. 8.6 million Ghana cedis on directors' remunerations. Apart from the salaries and others, 8.6 million Ghana cedis. That 8.6 million Ghana cedis can change. In fact, it can take care of free SHS, I believe, within a year.
So you're saying they should have cut costs?
My niece went to school, spent 2 months, came home 3 months. She's still at home. Because facilities are not available to accommodate the team and the huge numbers of students in the secondary schools. That was why President Mahama felt that free SHS should be progressive. Let's provide the structures. Let's increase the facilities before we go in there. This reckless and incompetent government refused to do so because you had a candidate at that time, unfortunately, who is the president, who was so emotive, and everything he did was so egoistic that he made a promise. That promise ought to be fulfilled. It doesn't matter whether the promises he made sense or not. This is what I want to do, and therefore I won't take my time and think through it. And as a result of that, we have these challenges we are facing. That 8.6 million Ghana cedis could have taken care of the free SHS a year. But another one that will shock you, banking supervision, 357.9 million Ghana cedis. Look, Central Bank has regional offices across the country. The responsibility or the mandate of officers there is to facilitate or to help to ensure that this supervision is done. Within Accra, if you say that you are even going to be doing it in Accra, is it fuel that constituted...
Have you had the response of the Bank of Ghana?
What response did they
Because within the period, they had to intensify some of these banking supervision activities.
Why? Were they supervising all the banks across the continent of Africa? I guess that's what they were doing. I guess there was an additional responsibility. Nigeria sought the assistance of the Central Bank of Ghana to supervise all their banks in Nigeria. How ridiculous. 357.9 million. But look at another one. Computers. 67.9 million Ghana citizens. Yeah, did they purchase new computers? Why? Elon Musk gave them some computers that you don't need a structure, that you just sit down out of nowhere, you are using the computers. You are a journalist, a seasoned journalist. You have been in practice for a very long time. 32 million Ghana cedis on communication. 32 million Ghana cedis. I want to ask my brother Kabiru whether it makes sense to him that they will plunder our resources, spend this amount of money in communication. When he made that analysis, he said, oh, you're looking at the circumstances because of the COVID and the challenges. Tomorrow they will tell us that the death of the Queen of England has occasioned this. Ghana was not the only country that was hit by COVID. And I don't know how many times we have to state here that other countries which economies were not doing better than Ghana. COVID hit all of us. Those countries, people died less as compared to the number of people who died in Ghana. They borrowed less. Burkina Faso borrowed 20 million in the name of COVID. We borrowed $3 billion in the name of COVID. Over $300 million from the World Bank in the name of COVID. Got over 300 million grant from the European Union in the name of COVID. Dip our filthy hands into the Bank of Ghana to remove money for the purposes of what only God knows. Then you come and then you tell me that because of the pressure that was exerted on the people of this country, that was the reason. But let me tell you what will shock you. Now, Kabiru, he said that assuming that you have budgeted for your family and your child unfortunately got malaria, you won't say that because you've budgeted this amount of money, you won't take care of that. That is a perfect analogy. And since this morning on this program is devoted to analogies, let me permit you to also bring out another analogy. Kabiru, you have gone home and your kids' school fees haven't been paid. Then you decided to go to Tamale or to Wale Wale to buy the best of smokes, as you are wearing one. To wear. When you have other smokes, but you decided to buy the best of smokes, you decided to go to Nigeria to buy the best of cheddar so that you can look nice when your children's school fees haven't been paid. If you do that, you are stupid.
He says that you can go to the bank
I'm saying that if you
break your bank.
I say if you do that, your children's school fees.
Go into your savings.
I'm saying that if your children's school fees haven't been paid, and you decided to spend money on luxuries, you decided to spend this amount of money on communication, 32 million. You decided to spend on the remunerations of employees, 8.6 million. You decided to spend $250 million to build another headquarters or another office. $250 million. In the eyes of all these challenges, it looks as if they are telling us to tighten our belts. Yet they have gone to the Bank of Ghana and the Flagstaff House, and the president has authorized that all of you rip off your belt hooks, so that if you don't have belt hooks, people will not even ask you to tighten your belt. How can you tell me that because of the challenges confronting us as a result of COVID and those things they have been telling us, outright nonsense, that they tell us in our faces that the reason why we are going through these challenges is because there's a global challenge that is hitting everybody. Yet, you are so luxurious enough to spend $250 million to put up another office. Can't you avoid that? Maintain this because of the prevailing circumstances, that when you get out of the woods, then you can be thinking of providing another office, even if you so need that office. That is illogical. And that is the point we are making, that the Central Bank reported losses in the past. But the difference between the past losses, one, apart from the quantum of losses, two, the jump in increased. If you juxtapose, I realized my brother was using big English, juxtapose. In fact, I even lost that. I wanted to be writing. Now, if you look at the losses incurred by the previous, center, including this one, look at the increases in expenditure. Juxtaposing these increases against last year. Last year, when we were so depressed as a country, granted without admitting that.
You mean the year before 2021?
Yes, granted without admitting that all our problems are occasioned by COVID and others. Granted. The reason why this government has to do that is because the Minister for Finance, who, by the way, is only a Minister for Finance because he uses Oforiatta. If he wasn't using Oforiatta, with his incompetence, the recklessness, and the mess he has created, this man will not spend a month.
You're not the appointing
Please,
authority.
I said this is the only minister. He was outside the country.
You are not
he was
the
not
appointing
well.
authority.
The ministry was waiting for him.
The president reserves
the only and I deserve the right to make my comments. Don't I?
Of course you do.
The democratic space is open to everybody. The only reason why this minister is the Minister for Finance is because he uses Oforiatta. And that's why I've been telling the other MPP guys. If you want to get appointment, go swear affidavit, add Oforiatta to your name. I'm even considering. No, I haven't finished.
No, please.
But let me conclude. Let me conclude. He is an economist. No, it's important.
No, you are a development planner.
No, I say it's important that I conclude. I beg you. It's important I conclude on this.
There are key issues. Yeah. And one of the blames that have been, well, assigned to the central government, of course, the economy being managed by the economic management team, Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia, for which you're one of the lead people in his office, as well as the finance minister, Ken Ofori-Atta, is that they put the central bank governor at a very compromised position. Now, apart from that, he's been asked to resign. What have you to say about that decision that has been made based on the position of the minority that the central bank needs to resign?
Yeah, so I just want to stress that their position is based on the fact that there are losses and there's allegation that some laws have been violated. And again, let me reiterate, 36 of the Bank of Ghana Act has stated that when there are government is exceeding this 5%, finance minister should submit a report to Parliament, not to go to Parliament for approval.
That's not true.
Let me read. For the purposes of emphasis.
Why was it?
Temporal advances, section 36. In the event of any emergency, the governor, the minister, and the controller and accountant general shall meet to decide the limit of borrowing. That should be made by government, and the minister shall submit a report on the issue to Parliament within 7 sitting days. Okay, that is the law. The law is not saying that you should go and seek parliamentary approval before exceeding the limit. 2, I would just ask a sister of mine to come for her stone, because she told me that Honorable Murtala would blackmail us on this issue, raise sentiment, try to raise the better term, argumentum ad hominem. Okay.
Big English.
He would also try to play on, in the words of Kukubaku, the emotional keyboards of Ghanaians. And that's essentially what he has done on
the
this
emotional
morning.
Keyboards of Ghanaians.
Yes, that's essentially
because we have a report by the central bank indicating that it's in a very impaired or perilous
I'm coming
position.
to that. That's what we are discussing today. And when you are asked to discuss that, you would, for the help of the Ghanaian people, try to devoid the emotion, try to push people so that they will not appreciate the reality. Either than that, when you find yourself in the same situation like he found himself some years ago, where he was having the responsibility to explain to the Ghanaian people on the happenings on the economy, he was finding it difficult because they had set a tempo, that is to say that play to the emotion of people and don't let them appreciate the issues. Now, when you find yourself in the unlikely event, maybe in the next 20 years, maybe or so, if they come to power.
Mama, let us appreciate the issues.
When they come to power, they will have that difficulty. So, 1, let us run away from that emotional game and face the issues. Now, the central bank. The economic management team hasn't put the central bank in any difficulty. Okay? The central bank has a responsibility to the nation. And the Mr. Addison and his lieutenants only supported this rule in terms of how they are supposed to manage or support the management of the economy.
By flouting the regulations?
No, point to me which of the regulation has been flouted. Okay? And we are a law-abiding country. If you feel that Mr. Addison has flouted any law, the courts are there. You can put him to the court and make sure that he is set charge or he's removed from the office. But if you cannot find any law he has flouted, you don't say that he has flouted any law. We can raise moral issues, which is allowed. raising moral issues about how much is spent on travel.
Are you saying that the issues being raised, not only by the opposition NDC, but also leading economists, some of whom might have taught you as well in the leading universities, as well as even the think tanks of Ghana, moral issues? Is that what you're saying, Dr.
I am saying that if an issue is not born out of law, okay, then the only argument you have on it is on morality. Because we are law. You haven't
answered my question. No?
That's the answer to your question. No. You have asked me.
I'm asking you. Are you saying that all the leading economists, Professor Bokpin, we have Lord Mensah, John Kwachi, etc., all only raising moral issues?
Which of them has raised a legal issue, and what is the legal issue?
A violation.
Okay, that's the point I'm making. If you cannot point to me,
I've pointed.
If you cannot point,
give me section 30 by way of the graphic.
And I'm saying that section 30, and if you read text 30, go to 36 and read that as well. Okay, so that was going to help us. But you cannot pick a part of the law and read it, and you leave a remaining part of the law when the law is a complete document. That if you read it without in disconjunction with other provisions, you get it wrong. So that is the part. Now, back to the central government. The central government only manage the fiscal handle of the economic management.
Section 30, it's on the screens now. And you're saying that exceeding 5% of the total revenue of the previous fiscal year, even though consistently before this fiscal year, there were the signs on board, on the ground, indicating that the central bank could be impaired due to the actions, the economic decisions being taken by the central government, managed by, of course, its economic management team leader, as well as the finance minister, could impair the central bank, not being listened to.
I will help you with this, especially if you let them project 36.
No, we are projecting this. Well,
okay.
You have quoted verbatim and
we've quoted it also verbatim, and you've used it to stress a point. And I'm saying that it will make more meaning. The people out there will appreciate our argument more if you let them project 36 as well. So for me, let's raise the moral issues of we are in a difficulty. Government could have, central bank could have been a bit, restrained in terms of some expenditure. If we raise them and we come to the details, for me, I very much agree with the people. But if you don't want to raise a legal issue, that issue must be founded in law. And if you don't have basis for it in law, I will hear and I'll defend the law that none of the laws of the country has been violated by the central bank. And if there's any violation, the constitution provides a remedy that if you feel like anyone is doing anything which is at variance with the laws of the country, the record is in the law court. Okay, so that is the point we need to establish. 2, the central bank spending was not something that was done illegally. They have mentioned to you that some amount of money, some 40 billion were lost through, the haircut as a result of the domestic debt exchange program.
How?
Because some 50% haircut was exerted on the COVID bond that central bank held. Non-market and marketable instruments were all part of their portfolio of instruments they held. Okay, so if you have a program that is affecting everyone, and the central bank is so affected, what is the crime the central bank has committed in this regard? I have not seen any crime being committed. Now we can come to domestic and foreign travels and question the numbers. But have you asked ourselves, wait for the report of parliament to come out? They are domestic travels. Those of us who are privy to the numbers, you ask them whether they were the ECOWAS Parliament or World Parliament. This Parliament of Ghana, he's a member. He's a member of committees. They do regular travels. Okay, when we begin to ask the question, you'll be candid to the issue. You'll be fair to Parliament if you ask how many travels did you embark on? What were the purpose of those travels? How many people went? How much did you pay for each travel? It is in these numbers, the details, the devil is in the details. It is in this number that you can honestly, frankly discuss the issue. But if you don't go to the details, you just take a lump sum and you throw it out there, 90 billion, 90 million, and you say that if you divide it by 1 million, we can give a primary school to Kulukuli Primary School. Okay, that is the emotion. Okay, that is the emotional bit of it. Try to ask the central bank, come with further and better particulars. Let us know the basis, the justification for each and every of these particular, lump sum we have had in the report. And the auditors have not raised any issue with the propriety of those expenditure. They have not raised any issue with the propriety of the. They have only raised issue with the losses. They have not gone to question that 42 million you spend on so and so was outrageous. The report would have indicated that because it is a report that is supposed to identify propriety in expenditure. So if the report has not highlighted any of this issue, then you then go to sit down and put your own meaning.
All right.
And ask the central bank to resign on that.
I'll take a cue from the finance minister who came to parliament and said an effort in discretionary expenditure will be undertaken within the fiscal period. Now, if you take what the report does indicate, please put it on the screen for me. We have to ask the question, where lies that initiative, the promise to the Ghanaian people that government itself, quasi-government institutions themselves will be exercising that power of discretion because the country is at its knees as far as the economy is concerned. And so decisions in expenditure at all levels of government and quasi-government institutions will be taken prudently. If you take a look at these itemized expenditure, personal costs, foreign and domestic travel, motor vehicle maintenance and running, communication expenses, etc. Where lied the power of discretion?
First and foremost,
shouldn't it be a moral question which we should be asking
Walker,
ourselves?
don't conflate the financial and government containment of expenditure in terms of central government with that of central bank.
Are you saying the central bank is living in isolation of what's happening in Ghana?
I want to stress that the law governing this does not even allow the finance minister, okay, to go into how much of the central bank spend or do not spend.
I have not said the finance minister needs to get.
No, I know. I'm not saying that's what you said. I'm only
what's the spirit and then the moral and what everybody's thinking in the country is we need to cut our quote according to our size.
I agree, and I'm just saying that.
So you agree?
I agree that the spirit of that statement requires that everyone at every level, micro and macro.
And if the Bank of Ghana is not adhering to that, shouldn't you be worried as a development economist?
In the first place, I cannot see here to determine whether the expenditure that that has been reported is in adherence. Because we don't have the counterfactual. We don't know how much they would have spent, but for that particular statement. And if I don't know that, I'm not privy to that, I cannot give you an answer with certainty that this expenditure is far in excess of what they have spent, but for that directive. But I'm just making the point that when you want to look at the government directive was followed to the letter largely by the central government, and the central government has demonstrated that in the mid-year budget review that expenditure was contained and that we have recorded primary balance surplus of 1.2% of GDP, which is as a result of expenditure containment. Okay, that is on record. So that statement was largely adhered to by the central government. The finance minister, the president of the republic, had done that exactly. Now, if you are coming to the issue of the Bank of Ghana expenditure, that is why I say let's give the central bank the benefit of explaining.
So
the benefit of explaining.
So he's defending them now.
No, I'm not defending. Look, the central bank has its autonomy.
Yes, sure.
Okay.
Backed by an act.
Backed by an act. Okay. And that autonomy requires that when issue happens, you give them the benefit of coming out to explain their issue. Again, there is no impropriety that has been mentioned in the expenditure. If there was any over-bloating of expenditure, if there was any pardon of some expenses, the report would have highlighted and would have been discussing those issues. But if we are just discussing quantums, okay, because you find out that no person should have spent some 9 million Ghana cedis or 8 million Ghana cedis in remuneration, you ask yourself, how many directors do we have? How often do they meet? Even if they don't meet often, what is the monthly remuneration of directors? Do that per person and multiply that by the year, you will have an appreciation of whether the amount so stated is in line with reality or not. But if you don't do that, and you just decide to say that, okay, 8 million is too outrageous, you are not. You
don't think it's
I don't think that it is
exceedingly outrageous.
Well, I don't think
exceedingly outrageous.
I don't think that the position that I have been placed in, the sense of judgment and reason, the benefit of knowledge God has given me, I will make such a determination without getting to the details. Okay, and that for anyone to go into the determination of their propriety or otherwise of expenditure without questioning the details, without being privy to the nitty-gritty of those factors, is being disingenuous, is not being fidel to the knowledge that God has even bestowed on the person. That's the first point I want to make. And my brother knows that. That rationality,
please end for me.
Prudence requires that he question the details, because the details will help you appreciate whether a certain line of expenditure was not necessary or it was necessary, and whether or not even the amount, the rate per each item line is reasonable or not reasonable. So that is the angle we need to go in terms of this discussion. But on the whole,
you're laughing, eh?
I'm laughing because
it says shall not. Shall not is obligatory.
Obligatory.
Which provision?
Anyway,
which provision?
In the Act.
Which provision? No, you are saying which
no,
act?
no.
Which provision in the act?
I just read to you the provision in the
No,
Act.
no, which provision?
Let's go to the one before.
Can I
have my
No, which provision?
Okay,
no, because simple. No, let's.
You've been talking.
At this point in time,
Yes.
the question will be asked also from the opposing side, those in government. Why should the central bank governor resign? And then, if you look at the Act, there are ways by which the central bank governor could be removed from office.
Well, I think that first and foremost, my brother needs to apologize to your viewing public for insulting them. He has just insulted your viewing public and unfortunately insulted the people of this country. He says that what I sought to do was to play to the emotions of the Ghanaian people and to dwell my argument on morality. The viewing public understands how they feel than you. So when you do that, you are suggesting that they don't have minds of their own except what I say on this program. So I would humbly expect you to apologize to the viewing public for attempting to insult them. You remember there was a day I said on this program, I said the MPP, in fact, President Nana Addo and the entirety of his corrupt appointees and incompetent appointees think that the people of this country are a bunch of idiots. That's how they look at us. But we are smarter than them. Why? I come to sit on a program, I raise my issues as allowed by the democratic space. Your viewing public have the right to decipher between what I say and what you say and come to their conclusion. And that's why those of us who like reggae, you know Joseph Hill's culture, he says that there are three sides to every story. Your side, my side, and the truth. I sit here to present my side of the story. You present your side of the story. The public will know the truth. We haven't said anything here that is not captured in the annual report and the financial statement of the Bank of Ghana.
You say you're playing to the emotion.
Hold on. Now, this argument of the law accepts it, we are arguing on the basis of morality. Where is it coming from? At least I have the benefit to have done LLB. Laws are anchored on morality. So this idea of the argument that people say that it is not illegal, any action that is morally wrong in any society can be deemed to be illegal.
It has to be codified.
Hold on.
You see, I made a point here another day.
Let's stress on that. I think you need to stress on that.
Here, you see, the law itself, the framers of the law itself know that people can smartly use the same legal instruments to rob the state. During the Nuremberg trial, after the Nazi Germans barbarously murdered people, you know what they said? When they were tried, they said they didn't commit any wrong. They didn't do anything wrong.
Because you know what they were right.
They said that the laws, the Nazis' laws, permit what they were doing. I did philosophy, level 100, level 200 in University of Ghana. And there's anybody who did philosophy, you do morality. The difference between us and animals is what in us called ethics. You find a dead body, someone is knocked by a car. Flies will fly over that dead body without even animals will pass. But as human beings, even if you won't stop, there will be something in you that will prick you to stand and watch or help the person. So when you argue on the basis of nobody, violated any law, that's why I ask you a simple question, Kabiru, Dr. Kabiru. If it is your money, will you spend 32 million, assuming Bank of Ghana was your property, a private entity, you own it?
would you have spent 32 million Ghana cedis annually on communication? 32 million, is it the statement they issued? Have you ever seen Bank of Ghana? How many press conferences did they hold the entire year? Will you spend 32 million Ghana cedis on that? Now again, the argument of the over expenditure, we are juxtaposing that because you have used very big words today. We are juxtaposing what the percentage increase in the expenditure against how much they spent last year. Some of them over 240%. Some of them over 114%. And we are raising this issue because the governor of the Bank of Ghana knew the precarious situation in which they were. Why did they go ahead to overspend in that manner? Now, if my salary, now we are all doing, those of us who eat gobe, Dr. Kabiru and co, they are not fan of gobe. Those of us who eat gobe now, you take your salary, you manage. Take your average employee here. I know that some of the people who work, they don't even pay them well in state institutions, less private institutions. The person get the salary. The person would have calculated how much I'm going to use on transportation, how much I'm going to use on feeding. Now, if the person is paid well, or some allowances have been added, he may have the luxury to take Uber. But if the allowances are reducing, the person will not, even he would have loved to take Uber, but he will join Trotro. So when you argue that nobody violated any law, yet you are not looking at the issue of the over and outrageous expenses.
And context.
At a time when you had those challenges, people expected you to be modest in your spending. You didn't do that. I want you to look into this camera, myself and you. We are all coming from part of the country where economic conditions, per the statistics we have, are extremely unacceptable. Dr. Kabiru, if you are the owner of Bank of Ghana, and as a practicing Muslim, I did hire with him this year, I want you to look into the cameras and tell me whether if you were the owner of Bank of Ghana, you would spend 32 million Ghana cedis on communication. You would spend 8.6 million Ghana cedis on remunerations of your directors. You would spend $250 million to put up another office when you have office that already in which you are doing some work, and taking into consideration the circumstance, whether you would do that. I want you to look into the cameras to tell me that whether you are happy that the very year they were spending these outrageous monies, 850,000 Ghanaians were pushed down the poverty line. 850,000 Ghanaians. And I can bet my last penny, a lot of them will come from where me and you are coming from. And that is why I think that it is even jihad, and not those who misinterpret and misunderstand jihad. It is even just to fight for the cause of the poor, to fight for people who do not have money. School of Hygiene, 24 months. Their allowances haven't been given. 24 months. And don't you think that the monies that outrageously have been spent on some of these things could have been used for that? Car, vehicles, and maintenance. 97.4, foreign and domestic travels. Is it not the same government who told us that they have asked ministers and deputy ministers not to engage in travels because they want to reduce costs? The same minister, your boss, Dr. Bawumia, was saying it. That they have asked ministers and deputy ministers and government appointees.
Since the Bank of Ghana is an independent institution.
That even makes our case stronger. Now, if he argues, thank God for reminding me, I nearly forgot. If he argues that the Bank of Ghana is independent and therefore they can do anything on their own without the interference of the executive arm of government, why did they overborrow? Why did they exceed that? And he says that no law has been violated. Laws have been violated. And I made reference to you when we mentioned Section 37 of the Banking Act, and you said we should go and read Section 48. It says that come for parliamentary approval. What is so funny about the last statement he made, when he said that the law says that they report to Parliament? I mean, you don't need to have any legal education to appreciate the fact that if it has to do with just reporting to Parliament, then the framers of the law wouldn't have even added it. The rationale behind their reporting to Parliament is that they know that Parliament has the capacity to approve or not to approve. So if we say the law says that they report to Parliament, they just report to Parliament, there wouldn't be any need to report to Parliament. The law says they report to Parliament because Parliament has the capacity to approve or not to approve. Parliament is the representative of the people, and you cannot have a democracy without Parliament. The 275 members, which he wants to push away my sister and join us in the 8th parliament. What you want to do, the capacity, the powers of members of parliament is not their powers.
Okay.
It's the people they represent. So, Dr. Kabiru, don't tell us that because they report to parliament that it's a violation of that law.
Joe Banner says, Roland, is Dr. Mahama trying to tell us that once the law gives you the discretion to spend, you do so to the detriment of your own people, and see how he's justifying the recklessness with confidence. Now, Bernard Balang says the governor of the Bank of Ghana should resign for posting this laws, law or not. Ejapa Gold. So now, the MPP don't believe in morality. Okay. Now, Robert now says I should ask Dr. Mahama to tell us what the benefits of the huge monies spent have been. They talk too much but do little. And Benjamin says that's Benjamin Tete says they keep provoking people. Now Shaibu Muhammad, you say he deserves a slap. Okay,
Doctor,
no,
he's my kid brother. No, Shaibu, no.
We only slap him when
all right.
When he
so Sampiyali says, if you go to 36 of the Act, which makes the violation of the Act criminal and subject to a term of imprisonment, I ask who printed the new currency and at what cost? I have Chris from Ashali Boche who says, it's nauseating listening to the Bank of Ghana governor sometimes. It's the same governor who collapsed some Ghanaian banks because they were in distress. They professed the banks needed 9 billion to survive, but ended up spending over 23 billion to collapse these banks. What is good for the goose should be good for the gander. That's Chris from Ashali Boche. Now, we have this one from lawyer Eric Alifo, who says, good morning. Dr. Kabiru's claim that Section 630 of the Bank of Ghana allows the Minister of Finance, the Controller and Accountant General and the Governor to just decide how much the BOG may finance government budget and merely present a report to Parliament just for the records of Parliament cannot be right. If no oversight is expected from Parliament, the law would not direct a report to be made to Parliament.
In fact, Bank of Ghana in 2016
now,
made even profits.
Nana,
so it's not even true.
Ayimedu from Jubilee House Communications. He says, actually, Roland, the whole Adongo insert you played had no relevance to the subject you are discussing. And I think you need not to end your reading of the Act of the Bank of Ghana Act as Section 31. At least, as a law student, you should be minded to read that section of the enactment in whole before proceeding to pronounce judgment.
Exactly.
Nobody has pronounced judgment here. I asked the question. Now, I have this from Triddles. Triddles, good morning to you. Times are hard. Unemployed people are on the increase, yet you hear the central bank flouting the regulations with another big word. I'm sure you are paying attention to the big words on the table. Humongous amount of money that can build a factory to employ the citizens of this country. Says it feels ashamed. Now, I have this one from Seidu Salaga. Tell Dr. Kabiru, we understand their modus operandi. That is how you said they steal. We know they do review the loopholes in the law to total disregard to moral and common sense. I have a couple more. And then I have Fortune, who says that I should be careful and that I should allow Mutala to speak. Well, I think I allow him
more than allow.
Allow him more than you.
Yeah.
All right, let me read just two more. ABA Fuseni.
3 times.
Roland, kindly send my sympathies to, that's from Stephen. Now, I have this one from Don Carlos. We appreciate the good works of TV3 towards the progress and development of Mother Ghana. Doesn't the man in defense of the rot happening at the Bank of Ghana see anything wrong with a component of expenditure towards communication alone being 32 million, and other expenditure items. Is the Bank of Ghana now a telecommunication entity or a communication outfit? Allah, we are lost. Don Carlos. Anyway, now let me just get back to basis. Are you ready to win lots of cash every day? So we have the chance to be telling you to be the crowd puller, as also you become the proud winner of cash simply by joining us as far as cash is concerned. So we have cash out, and you have to do that with a short code. We have *439, and you can do that all the time. And let's do some draw before we go. We'll do some draw quickly as possible.
What draw?
Okay. So we have the short code *439. Please save it in. Or you don't do...
I don't do lotto or any
This
form.
is not lotto.
But any form
This
of
cash out.
Any form of draws. I don't
Cash
do
out.
them.
Cash out. It's
Yes.
cash out. Okay, now let's do draw. 3, 2, 1. All right. So we have 0545190. That's the first winner. And then we'll continue with the second. All right. So we'll go to we'll try and call the first one if we can. And then also let's go to the second draw. Can we have it on screen? 3, 2, 1, cash out. So the next winner with the number 058898, as we have it on the screen. All right, so we'll try. All right, so we'll try as much as possible. Musa Abatwa says, I totally agree with the minority calling for the BOG governor's head. Are you also calling for the 2 deputies to step aside as well?
All right. If we had a chance, we would have called for the vice president to go. It's just unfortunate that he can't, because he managed them. And if the chief comes home with weird haircut.
All right, so we have the first cash out winner on the line. Good morning to you.
Oh my gosh.
How are you?
I'm fine, thank you.
What's your name?
Oh, thank you.
What's your name? Where are you speaking from, please?
I'm Esther calling. I'm from Ho.
Oh, okay, you're in Ho.
Oh, I'm so excited. I don't have cream. Oh my God.
Esther, how much did you win?
1,000 Ghana cedis.
Hey, just this morning.
Oh
Charlie. Please, I will send you my mobile number so that you can put some on it for me, okay?
All right.
Esther.
Sure.
All right, if we get the second one, that'll be.
Thank you.
Okay, so we'll try and get to the second part. So, so apart from Musa Abatwa Aswasi, okay.
Roland, you remember, Dr. Kabiru was saying that we should praise them for some of the successes they had in 2019. I guess I heard him so. I'm wondering what successes. All the successes this government took in 2017, 2018 was as a result of the NDC, the kinds of things NDC did. In fact, the World Bank itself. Okay. And then the country director.
You always make that point.
No, the country director.
Philip Abochi says the deputy government.
No, the country director
is now getting to the Bank of Ghana and to the point of collapse. Okay, it's your birthday today, Mrs. Jifa Sejro, and it's from myself and then lawyer as well. We greet you very much for looking after us all the time. Now, Amoda Hamidu says the allowances to nurses, etc., should be stopped and channeled into building more hospitals, increasing their salaries, and building affordable houses for both teachers and nurses. And that was speaking to our earlier topic.
The egoistic campaign promise.
Now, let me say good morning to Nikal of North Carolina. We're talking about the United States of America alongside Angela, your wife. I wish you all the best. Dr. Mama, thank you for coming.
Thank you very much. Welcome for having me.
Yeah, Mutala. We're taking a break. We have a conversation coming up. We have increases in the prevalence rate of HIV, and then we have some of the numbers jumping from one region to the other, and then the age groups as well. We have a big conversation with a key personality at the Ghana Ice Commission. So make sure you stick and stay. We'll also open the phone lines with their interaction, and you can interact with us as far as this is. Please, we're taking a break. We'll be right back.
He doesn't even know.
Jackpot of the week. Place bets and hit the jackpot. Log into the OneXBet account. Click on the Take Part button. Place bet and take part in the jackpot draw. Give your luck a chance. Use promo code to get a bonus on your first deposit.
This advertisement has been vetted and approved by the Gaming Commission of Bet Responsibly. Not for persons below 18 years. Gambling can be addictive.
What does winning mean to you? For Yao, it's seeing the joy in his mother's eyes after he provided her with a state-of-the-art kitchen to cook her signature Unapo Jollof.
It's a mega win.
For Ajua, it's turning her passion for photography into a successful career while providing her children with the best education possible.
It's a mega win.
For Kwame, it's becoming his own boss and